Hello everyone, I'm Joel Franey from GamesRadar and I'm joined by Josh West.
We're here to chat about Atomic Heart.
I have played about 7 hours of the game. Josh here has played all the way to the end and written our review. So just to start off, tell us what this game is, because it has a fairly unique pitch.
Yeah, so Atomic Heart is a first-person shooter that's sort of built in the mold of BioShock, Half-Life 2, Wolfenstein. So it has these different sort of elements to it, but broadly it's alternate history at the end of World War II. What if the Soviet Union rose to command it through the development of advanced robotics and avionics. So that's kind of the starting point for it.
And you
play as this character, Agent P3, a war veteran who cannot remember his past.
I'm sure that won't come up.
Very mysterious. Something that I found really fascinating was, other games have tried this alt history take, Wolfenstein being a perfect example where, the world is outrageous, the characters are really colourful, but you see it and experience it all through these eyes, the sort of stoic, quite tired eyes of BJ Blazkowicz, and, he's this sort of like anchor to the world, whereas in Atomic Heart, P3 just really doesn't care. He's actually quite ambivalent and lacks really any sort of curiosity about the quite absurd events he's finding himself in, which creates this pretty wild dissonance.
Well, if he doesn't care, I felt like, why should I? Because he's our viewpoint. It also, what you were saying about the other games to compare it to, even BJ Blazkowicz re-enters that world having been comatose for about 15 years. So with most of these games, our characters don't know anything and have to make a good sort of point of view for that, whereas P3's been in it for several years now and needs nothing explained to him, which is a difficult starting point.
Yeah, he's a difficult character to spend 20 hours with.
Yeah, I was getting that, and I wasn't even halfway of 20 hours.
In terms of the writing, it's one of the biggest problems with the game is because the story is quite messy. It has a lot of concepts and a lot of big ideas. You've got these serious discussions about communism and the role of artificial intelligence in society and, blah, 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 blah. And then he's just there, being hyper misogynistic and making dick jokes.
Choke on it and die, you fat turd.
It doesn't work. It's just a huge stop in the flow of the game.
It all has to go through this sort of unpleasant meathead. So even the good ideas get poisoned in that journey. With that world, what kind of gameplay does it offer moment to moment? What are we actually doing in it?
Ostensibly, it is a quite slow-paced first-person shooter, which mixes, a variety of firearms, a small selection of evolvable melee weapons, and then some polymer powers, which the closest comparison there would be the plasmids in BioShock. And they allow you to, freeze enemies or electrocute them, or telekinesis, which was my favorite, which sort of allows you to fling enemies up into the air and then bring them crashing back down to the ground. That stuff's all cool, but you sort of moment to moment is, fighting androids, fighting mutants, and then sort of slowly exploring these elaborately linear facilities, basically, and, looking for secrets and talking to dead bodies and finding audio diaries and all that good stuff.
Between the facilities, though, there's an open world. What's that like, having left the bunkers and the mazes and the slightly more linear to just the open world around you?
Yeah, I think the open world is actually one of those sort of key examples where you can see that Mundfish has stretched itself too thinly, because, the facilities, each one of those are these sort of labyrinthian spaces where it progresses through, a variety of different sort of gameplay types and encounter designs, and, they're quite interesting. And then between those, there's this open-ended, open world space, and it's just gorgeous. It looks amazing, but it is totally empty. It's like the worst version of what these open world spaces can be like. Basically, you move around them on foot, or if you can find one, in a car, although the car will explode if you hit, I think it's 5 enemies. The car then explodes, and the amount of time it takes to get out of the car you have to basically immediately start the animation, otherwise you get blown up and go back to a checkpoint, which is super annoying.
Sounds punishing.
Yeah, it's not great. And, basically the only thing you can really do is explore the same set of like repeated houses and farmhouses, which are usually locked behind the most annoying lockpicking mini game I've seen or played in years. Hunt for resources, or just fight waves and waves of enemies, because there's a really convoluted system for turning the alarm off.
It took me about an hour to even understand what it wanted from me.
Yeah, I don't. It's honestly, by the end, or by the midpoint, I was just running, or not even running because you can't sprint, there's no sprint button. I was moving as quickly as humanly possible to the next main mission and just avoiding the enemies as much as possible, because there's just nothing to do. It's just a really hollow facade that is dressed in this beautiful like 4K coat. And it's very nice to look at, but it's just quite dismal to actually experience.
And just to clarify, is that an issue limited to the open world, or is it better in the bunkers, as bleak as that sounds?
It's better in the bunkers. Atomic Heart is strongest when it's being more linear, more directed. I would say that for me personally, I found the combat to be a little flat, even after I'd sort of upgraded a lot of the weapons and found my favorites and put some points into the powers. They don't really combine all that much. The melee combat, I found it to be quite weightless, and the gunplay is serviceable, but it doesn't really have the weight or the feedback that you'd want, when you're peppering all these enemies with bullets. And they've got quite a nice damage permeation system where if you slash an enemy with an axe, you see the slice in the chassis, and it's the same with the bullets. Like, they're getting peppered with these bullets, but it just never really feels like you're doing anything. So there's a lot of ideas, but the execution isn't really strong enough to pull it all together.
If you could pull a particular positive from it, even if it's just something for future developers to bear in mind, what would you say is the game's strength, if it has one? I don't want you to, conjure something from the ether.
No, Atomic Heart's strength ultimately is the design of its world. Like, the visual direction is fascinating. I think
it is a good-looking game, isn't it?
It's a great-looking game. I reviewed it on PS5, and, I would love to see what the PC version looks like, because that's got real-time ray tracing and stuff like that. And, it's genuinely one of the best-looking games I've played in a long while. Like, it looks fantastic. There were some slight issues with cutscenes in the sort of back end of the game where the quality does sort of decay a bit, but for the most part, like, the environments are stunning. It's a really nice world to just walk around in, and I just wish they'd sort of followed that through with a bit more interactivity and more ways to really capitalize on the immersion of it all.
So with that in mind, Josh, what score are you giving Atomic Heart?
Atomic Heart gets 2.5 stars out of 5, and you can read the full review on GamesRadar.
Get the fuck off me!